Hi there. It's January the 11th, and today we continue our journey through the good news of Matthew, and we are in Matthew chapter 8, and we're going from verse 18 through to verse 34. The first thing that Matthew tells us in this reading today is of two people who come to Jesus with different reactions to the things he's done and to wanting to follow him. The first one says, Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. And he is very outward, very emotional, very expressive in his desire to follow Jesus. But Jesus tells him the cost of following him. He's not going to have an easy time. He's not going to have a permanent home if he comes with Jesus. He's going to be moving from place to place. And so Jesus kind of opens up the motives of the heart here, that the motives of the heart are to follow, but actually there's a question, can you actually pay the cost that's necessary? And then there's another person who comes and says, Jesus, I will follow you, but first of all, let me take care of my family. Let me bury my father. Now, it's not clear whether his father had actually died yet or whether he wanted to stay and to remain and to take the responsibility that after all would be his as a family member to take care of the dead. But Jesus really says, no, there's an urgency about this. There's a cost to this. If you follow me, you give up everything else. In fact, he says, let the dead bury their dead. And it sounds a very harsh thing to say, but Jesus is really putting out there the cost of following him. And then there's this next scene of them on the sea when they're crossing the Sea of Galilee. And a great storm comes up. Now, the sea in the Old Testament, the sea in the story of Israel, is always something which speaks of something very dark and very dangerous. And God speaks to the sea and he calms it. For instance, in the story of Jonah, when Jonah is out on the sea and the boat is tossed and turned, God actually brings the sea to stillness. So the sea is a picture of chaos. The sea is a picture of danger. But here is Jesus, and as the storm is going on, the disciples, the apprentices of Jesus, call out to him and say, "We're going to die. We're going to perish." But Jesus says, "Oh, you of little faith." And in Greek the word is oligopisti, few faith, little faith. If you have such little faith, do you think that I'm going to let you go down? And Jesus calms the sea. And this is an amazing picture of Jesus' power over creation. As he says to the sea, peace, be still, and it goes calm. And this causes the disciples to say, what kind of person is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? And that's the natural world, but then there's also the spiritual world that obeys him. There's the world beyond the scene. So as Jesus crosses over the sea, he has two demonized people, two people who are taken over by a power that is not them, come, and they start crying out. They start telling the truth, actually, that Jesus is the Son of God. They say, Son of God, what do we have to do with you? And Jesus is already calming them. Jesus doesn't want the enemy, doesn't want the devil publicizing who he is, and so he's calming them. And then they make this amazing appeal to Jesus to allow them to go into a herd of pigs which are nearby, and Jesus permits them to leave these two demonized people and to go into a herd of pigs. And the whole herd of pigs is immediately taken with frenzy and throw themselves into the sea. It's a very expressive, very dramatic scene that is painted here by Matthew. But then the reaction of the people who have witnessed this, the reaction of the people who are part of the village where the pig owners live, are so appalled at what's happened. They don't come to Jesus and see him as a great power. They actually come and say, please go away from us. This is too scary for us. This is too much for us. And that is one reaction to the power and the presence of God. The power and the presence of Jesus, his fear comes upon them. As we see these different aspects of Jesus' power, of his ministry, there will be different reactions to who Jesus is. But always there's this invitation to follow him, always this invitation to trust him, always this invitation not to be of little faith, but to have complete faith and trust in him. Let's put our trust completely in him today as the one who rules the winds and waves, as the one who has the final say, even over the powers of evil. Have a very good January the 11th.